Coming up next, a band that had to fight tooth and nail to get airplay on American radio in the late 70s. Just a few years later, though, they would be the #1 band in the world, and their global domination would begin really with this song. That's a no doubt about a classic, and in a way, it was written by the singer's dog. While the music was written in the back of a van while the band was traveling at 100 miles an hour on the autobahn. Decades later, it's a surprise the song was recorded at all because the band was at each other's throats all the time at this moment. Fist fights, shouting matches, the amazing stories coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. If you remember Side 1 and Side 2 of all your favorite albums in order, you're going to dig this channel. Make sure to subscribe below right now and click the bell so you don't miss out. We also have a Patreon. There you'll find an additional catalog of exclusive content, and you can even become an honorary producer on our program. And that helps us curate this music history, more videos, more interviews, and also check out our new merch. It's time for another edition of #1 in Our Hearts, one of my favorite shows on here. This is where we honor songs that were so unbelievably great. They should have been #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart, but for whatever reason, be it radio play, label support, lack of marketing, or just sheer stupidity, the songs came up short. Previously, we've covered Under Pressure by Queen and David Bowie, Steppin' Out by Joe Jackson, and Tainted Love by Soft Cell. Today, we are giving the Police their 1979 classic Message in a Bottle, its total due, and we're inducting it into the Professor of Rock Hall of Fame, if you will. Message in a bottle, yeah. I mean, the fact that Message in a Bottle only reached at number 74 on America's Billboard Hot 100 is absolutely criminal. It seemed like everyone else in the free world got it. After all, it went to #1 in the UK, went to #2 in Canada, #5 in Australia, pretty much across Europe. The Police had already made some headway in America thanks to a grueling tour that had them driving across the U.S. in a Ford Econoline van. Their debut album, Outlandos de Amor, even reached number 23 in the States, and Roxanne came in at number 32. But in the interim, singles like Can't Stand Losing You and So Lonely both failed to chart. Both great songs. By the fall of 1979, the Police were surprisingly trending in the wrong direction in the United States. The Police were as perplexed as many of their fans. They were kind of disappointed. They had high hopes for creating buzz in America. Stewart Copeland figured that maybe their music was just too sophisticated or a bit too jangly for American airwaves. Sting said, "I think to have a hit single in America, the single has to obey a formula, and I don't think Message in a Bottle particularly fits in that formula. But I mean, that's no reason for us to be disheartened because, if anything, it makes us more unique." The same week that Message in a Bottle peaked at number 74, the artists who did fit in the formula were Rupert Holmes with Escape, the Pina Colada song, Casey and the Sunshine Band with Please Don't Go, and The Styx with Babe. All of these were in the top 3 spots. Whenever I get weary and I've had enough. This was a moment when the 70s were all but over and the 80s had already begun, in my opinion. I mean, New Wave had started to challenge disco, soft rock and hard rock were mainstays on the charts. Is she really going out with him? The songs on the charts were a mix of all of those genres. Even though their singles weren't making the impact at that moment, Sting was confident that the Police could make it big in America. And as a band, they were determined to make that happen. Only on their own terms, though, not on American tastemakers' terms. The Police, of course, stayed resolute to their sound. And like Sting predicted a little more than a year later, Americans started catching up. Zenyatta Mandata's the do-do-do-da-da-da-da, and of course, Don't Stand So Close to Me. Those both reached number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100. At the close of 1981, Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic, one of the greatest songs ever, that ascended to number 3. Americans didn't know it yet, but they were about to be attacked by this band and others. The first warning shots of the second British invasion had already been fired at this point. As the Police began the process of recording their second album, Regatta de Blanc, their label A&M started to realize what it had. Wanting to maximize sales, they suggested the guys team up with a celebrated producer and record in a state-of-the-art studio. More industry oversight was their rallying cry. But for the Police, it was a hard pass. They decided to stick with Surrey Sound, where they had recorded Outlandos d'Amore. The guys were just figuring out their formula at that point. They didn't need a bigger studio or a more famous producer mucking it all up. Besides, they already had 3 producers in the band, and that was plenty. Andy Summers explained, "We got a sound of our own now that definitely has something to do with the fact that it's just the 3 of us in the studio. No outside producers laying any trips on us or extra sophisticated recording techniques." That sound was a unique and funky fusion of hard-driving rock, Jamaican reggae, Britpop, and a new wave. And it was really working. While Outlandos d'Amore had been recorded piecemeal over the course of about 6 months, Regatta only took 3 weeks to finish. The band even canceled 2 weeks of studio time. Copeland believed this remarkable efficiency came about because they knew each other's styles so well. After all, they'd been playing together constantly for the last 8 months. That was an advantage that they didn't have when they recorded their debut. Stewart Copeland recalls, by the second record, we were able to arrive at the arrangements quicker because we were much more familiar with each other's musical vocabulary. We just went into the studio and said, right, we've got the first song. Andy Summers would even say that extensive touring allowed them to treat their time in the studio just like another gig. So confidence was high, and even though there was a constant barrage of sarcasm, banter, and semi-serious fist-fighting in the studio, it was all part of the process, really. Arguments, wrestling matches, that only increased the quality of the music.
Yes, that would be good, wouldn't it?
That is until Synchronicity. That's another story for another day. So as we go into the rest of the breakdown of Message in a Bottle, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, the glasses that I jam every single day. So with the holidays coming up, Zenni's, they make a great gift. You go to Zenni.com, you're able to customize your own frames and make sure that you add blue blocks to every frame that you order. Blocks protect your eyes against harmful UV and blue light that we all encounter from time to time. And it's been a game changer for me. I used to get headaches all the time, and that's now gone. All right, back to the song. So this incredible trio of egocentric geniuses, they kept each other in check through a spirit of begrudging compromise. With the Police, there was this ever-present tension between criticism and collaboration. And the result was a much tighter, leaner sound. Regatta de Blanc was released on October 2nd, 1979. It stayed at number 1 in the UK for 4 weeks. And then the band set off once more for the States in hopes of, winning them over once and for all. During a 1981 recording session for Ghost in the Machine, Sting stated that Message in a Bottle was the best composition that he'd ever written. He said, when I wrote Roxanne, I thought, I like that. It's really good. Will I ever write one better? Then I wrote Message in a Bottle, which was better than Roxanne. My favorite song is probably Message in a Bottle because lyrically and musically, it's the most unified piece that I've written. Of course, that was back in '81. He's probably changed his mind. Andy Summers, though, agreed. He said it was a masterpiece of a pop song and one of his personal favorites. Musically, the song revolves around the opening guitar riff, which can be described as busy. There are several different notes inside the beat. This busyness is an intentional contrast to the isolated setting of the song. It's intended to evoke the hustle and bustle of modern urban life. So apparently, Sting had been carrying this particular guitar riff around in his head for about a year. But it didn't start to come together until the band was traveling through Germany while driving on the autobahn. Sting was jamming on his black Fender Strat in the back of the van, and all of a sudden it started to click. Take a few false starts before he found the right subject matter for the lyrics. However, Sting remembers playing it over and over again for his dog in his basement flat in Bayswater. As he puts it, his dog would just kind of stare back at him with this look of hopeless resignation. Sting could see it in his dog's eyes. When are you going to put that guitar down and take me for a walk around the park? Sting jested that it may have been that hopeless look in his dog's eyes that inspired the idea of the island castaway. Whether the dog gets the full credit or not, at some point a story emerged about a Robinson Crusoe character from those jam sessions, a castaway stranded on a desert island, throwing a hopeful bottle out to sea. Sting knew he had a hit the first time he played it. Message in a Bottle, it sits squarely outside the scope of a typical pop song. In a bold stroke, Sting drops us into an exotic locale and an ordeal that few people will ever experience, being cast away on a deserted isle. But the brilliance of the song, that comes from the deeper meaning beneath the surface. It's subject to something that all of us have experienced: loneliness. As we picture what it might be like to wash ashore on a desert island, our curiosity is piqued. First glance, it's a blissful fantasy. You can imagine the sun and the surf, the white sandy beaches, no noise, no commotion, no stress. None of the stresses of modern life, as it were. For a moment, it seems like paradise. But the intrigue of the illusion, that washes away by the third line of the song. We discover that it's just another lonely day on the island for the castaway. In fact, he says that the loneliness is more than any man could bear. Isolated and losing hope, he cries out to be rescued from this despair. In a desperate act, the castaway delivers a letter into the sea. The chorus implies a hope of rescue from loneliness, and the first time it mentions the title of the song. I'll send an SOS to the world. I'll send an SOS to the world. I hope that someone gets my message in a bottle. Someone gets my message in a bottle, yeah. Sting never does divulge what the exact contents of the message are, but since the song repeatedly refers to loneliness, it's fair to guess that that may have been part of it. Fast forward to the second verse, Sting sings, "A year has passed since I wrote my note." A year has passed since I wrote my note. We can sense that desperation mounting. The castaway is still on the island, all alone. He's still hopeful. He wants to believe that someone's going to read his message, and maybe that's all that's really keeping him together. But you get the sense from Sting's eloquent vocal, the hope seems to be slipping away, especially when he laments, "I should have known this right from the start." That's when you hear that desperation. I should have known this right from the start. And then we get this abstraction. Love can mend your life, but love can break your heart. And we realize that this song isn't just about loneliness. This castaway is crying out for love. He wants a lover to rescue him from a metaphorical island. So far, the story has followed a simple chronological path from beginning to end, but in the third verse, Sting mixes things up by employing some interesting writing devices like he always does. He uses hyperbole when he sings about 100 billion bottles washed up on his shore. Taken literally, that many bottles would cover the island and extend into the ocean beyond the horizon. But of course, by this point, we're deep into the metaphor. Sting is essentially saying that there are more lonely people out there than we can possibly imagine. Through the voice of the castaway, Sting sings, "Seems like I'm not alone in being alone. 100 billion castaways looking for a home." It's a sad irony just how lonely modern life can be. And that's how he felt in the late 70s. I mean, through technology and the media, they brought us closer together than ever before, but we still feel like castaways on our own desert island. We pass each other on the street, a lot of times without a smile, without a hello, without even a glance, because we're staring at our devices. As the song comes to a close, the castaway is still trapped on that island. There is no helicopter to lift him away. There's no passing freighter. He's alone, only reconciled by the fact that he is not the only one alone. Sting doesn't offer an outright solution. He leaves us each marooned, as it were, on our own desert island, so that we can contemplate what to do about it. Maybe the implication is that love is what saves us. I suppose all of us know what it's like to be a castaway. We all need to be rescued from time to time. I mean, there have been so many times in my life when loneliness was so real, I couldn't feel anything else. Aching melancholy, crippling despair, we've all felt it. We all want to be understood. We all want to be accepted. We desperately need it. Being loved by someone else helps us to thrive. This song is a powerful reminder that we really do need each other. It has even more meaning after what we've faced over the last couple of years. We've all felt marooned in our own homes. There's a lot deeper meaning to Message in a Bottle than what I thought when I was a young kid listening to it, for sure. Message in a Bottle was certified gold in both the UK and France. It's been played at several prominent concerts over the years, including Live Aid in '85 and Freedom Fest, Nelson Mandela's 70th birthday in '88. It's also appeared in a number of films and TV shows. It's been on Saturday Night Live, Rugrats Go Wild, So You Think You Can Dance, Doctors, Mystery Science Theater 3000, and Succession, to name a few. It was also used in season 3 of The Office at Phyllis's wedding, that episode. Kevin's band is called Synchronicity, a play on Synchronicity, of course. They do a few Police songs, including Message in a Bottle. It was also in Guitar Hero 2. And of course, Message in a Bottle has been covered so many times by a wide variety of artists. There's Machine Head, Vienna Boys Choir, John Mayer. Actually, No Doubt and Sting performed it at Super Bowl 37 in 2003. Only hope can keep me together. 30 Seconds to Mars have done it, and Bruno Mars does a really cool version. No one gets my message in a bottle, yeah. And if that wasn't enough, there's even a musical based on the songs of Sting and the Police that came out named after the song. To paraphrase Andy Summers, Message in a Bottle was born in a moment that can never be replicated. You had the right three people come together under the right circumstances at just the right time. It will never be done again. That's how perfect songs are.
It's my message in a bottle.
Andy Summers believed that if you write music that isn't true to how you feel, then there will always be a false note in that song somewhere. And eventually the audience is going to pick up on that. Ironically, the more disingenuous you are trying to please the masses or relying on algorithms or targeted marketing, your music will ultimately lose its commercial appeal. People crave authenticity. We need music that we can truly connect to.
Only hope can keep me together.
I mean, the Police, they never wavered in this regard. Message in a Bottle, along with the rest of their body of work, was not only a signature sound, it was 100% genuine. And it resonated with people so deeply, you and me. That may have taken Americans in the late 70s a few years to catch on to it. But the Police sent out an SOS to the world, and within a few years, they were the biggest band in the world. And decades later, Message in a Bottle is undoubtedly number one in all our hearts. Make sure to leave us a comment about the Police and about Message in a Bottle. What are your memories of this song? Share your thoughts on this incredible trio in the comments below. You know, Sting has a new record out right now. It's called The Bridge. It's really great. You'll want to check that out. We'll link to it below. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to check out our deep dive into the Police, their 1978 hit Roxanne. Also, subscribe below so you never miss out on our videos. We'd love to have you as part of our community here. And make sure to check out our new merch as well as our Patreon so that we can keep the music alive. That's what this is all about. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. Talk to you soon.